special meeting? What are we calling this? The special board meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order. And we will be speaking tonight about the budgets. And a couple of other items that involve the budget. And I don't see it on the agenda, so I would like to add the discussion about the option to have our budget sent into the state on the 30th of September instead of the 15th. So let's add that to like 2A.
Madam President,
Yes,
point of order, so I think this would be covered under just the budget discussion and not a separate item.
oh, okay. Okay, that's fine.
We're not allowed to add to this.
Oh.
You're big.
Well, that's even better. It's related, like I said, to this, so.
100% I agree.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, so the first item on the agenda is going to be, we're gonna go in,
Call.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we need to do a roll call. Make sure we have a quorum present. So, will you do that, Adam?
Sure. Manager Loth,
I am here in the airport, so I appreciate everyone's
Oh.
patience.
Manager Taves,
Here.
Manager Baki. Manager Schmalz. Here. President Anderson.
Here. Great, thank you. We have a quorum. All right, so the first item up, the way I'd like to do this is just bring up each of the different scenarios. We've got 3 of them. And Bonnie, who is our new CPA that we've been working with for Red Dot, here she is. She's present to help answer any questions. And we'll start with my version, I'll call it. And we'll bring up the ones that were just updated with some of the questions that were asked. And we will start with that version 4. I don't think we have to go through all of this, Emily, just to help speed this along. This is the assumption tables. You're all gonna get a copy of this after the meeting. And they're pretty much the same as what you've seen. Tom Fury found a calculation error. So we corrected that. And that was just from change. These are all interconnected formulas, of course, and so we made a change. One place didn't catch that it didn't go over to the one that you were looking at. So that's been corrected. And what was the other substantial things on this? I think it was adding a table that showed the different levels of house values and what the impact is on the dollar basis to those. One of the PAC members had asked about that. And so we corrected that. And I don't think there were any other major changes on in if you want to call out something that was significant. Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to the consolidated page. That's the levy summary. Let's go to, yeah, there it, that one. Okay, so I haven't pulled mine up yet. I'm gonna have to look at that. Gonna have to go bigger on the screen, Emily, and then we'll just move back and forth as we need to. So the first section, of course, is the revenue. And starts with 2024. Next column over is E, that's 2025. And then 2026. So adding all of these separate aggregated and aggregating all of these separate areas where we bring money in. The total is going to be that 4.5. I'm just gonna go up to that first one, so we're almost 4.6. Which isn't that far off, actually. It looks like a little less than what 2025 had.
But that's because of the land acquisition that was so big this year.
Well, I
Right.
think that's mentioned, yeah,
Yeah, so it goes down, but
yeah. But anyway, so you can see at the line going over 27, 28, 20, it goes up about $1 million each year, or not each year, but. And then it stays steady going forward. little bit of an increase. And that depends on the projects that we're working on too, a whole bunch of things. But in this scenario, this is an aggressive, pay down of our debt. And, we should have been planning for that, years before, and we didn't do that. It's brought up every year, but it didn't pass. And so now we've got this debt that we've got to take care of. And our net position, as we've been talking to you guys about, is pretty miserable. It's at 1.9 million at the end of last year. So it's time to take action, and that's what this budget is all about, is taking action and doing it on a 5-year basis. And that's what you're seeing in this. We have a special levy that we're going to do. I really need some water. It's really dry in here, and I couldn't get it open. It was a full pack there, so if you could,
One on the door.
I didn't see him. I'm gonna get it open. This, can you open it, please? I'm trying to do something. Anyway, so the point of this whole thing is that we want to take care of this debt. We also don't want to inhibit our forward motion. And we want to have our reserve get back up to the healthy position that we need. We have to cover the 6 months of operating expense, including wages, in the first 6 months of the coming year. And then we also need a cushion for any unexpected things that might come our way. And it always happens. Sometimes it's a big surprise, sometimes it's a small surprise, but there's always unexpected things that occur, and we need to be having that level high enough so that we can at least handle those. Okay. The assumption table has all of the increases going through all of these different areas. And that hasn't really changed. So that's not gonna be new for those of you that have looked at it already. And if we can, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on the wages, excuse me, on the expenses, because that hasn't changed. So we'll move that down, and let's go to debt service. Yep, they're right there. That's the one that really has changed, and we want to pay that down. And so what we're proposing in this version is a special levy that is taken out of our current operating levy. And so throughout this, the estimate for the base levy, I'll call it, the one that we always had, the operating levy, that's in the assumption table. So that's expected to go up. I think it's 4% each year was the assumption. And then this big dollar amount that we're trying to pay down is going to be a special levy apart from our operating levy. So it's done on a dollar basis and it's done on a time basis. So it's going to be, I think this one has the 400,000 in it, and then we will have that over 5 years. And there's an alternative one, of course, that's 500,000 a year over 4 years. So that's, you know, we can play around with that. But that, I think if you go over to the right, so that we're in the higher years, let's go to 2030. I think that's when this one will end. When those dollars get down to the smaller numbers, the 289 and 218, I think those are just residuals that will probably be taken care of earlier than stretching out to 2034, unless there's some debt that's separate from what we're talking about. It's the big loans. So that's pretty much it. That you've seen all of this, so that's not different. The only thing that really changed here is that correction that was made. And then if you go down to the bottom, actually, I don't think it's on this one. We're assuming some project costs. A lot of those earlier ones are based on engineering information, so they're pretty accurate, but they can go up or down. I think what I'm looking for, Bonnie, is the levy summary, is that right? What we have the per house chart, yeah, I think it's there,
Yes, near the bottom of that page.
yeah. Okay, I can hardly see that here on the screen. But if we look down, oh, there it is, okay, tax rate, no, go back up again. Okay, right there, isn't it right there, Bonnie?
Yes, in orange is where it starts, and then the comparison by the market values is the next section.
Okay, can you just walk the group through that, because it's hard for me to see from here, I'm gonna try to pull it up on my screen. But, just walk through those, that yellow bar and the, one below it in the white with the blue around it.
Sure, we started out with a medium home value of 375,000 to try to predict where the property tax levy would be on a per household basis. This first one in kind of the orangish yellow highlight here predicts by year where that median home value would fall the individual per household tax rate for that $375,000 benchmark for the medium home. And then we have a dollar amount tax increase per home, increase or decrease depending on the outer years. And then the percentage of the tax levy increase per household from that perspective. So it kind of gives, you know, some of the percentages can be dramatic at times, but trying to look at an overall dollar value perspective is, you know, another good way of looking at things. So that's kind of the gradual incline. There's an assumption in there that property tax values would raise at about 3% a year from a base inflation of the existing homes. There's also a base adjustment for new homes built, and that slight increase per year in some of the out years. So it kind of adjusts the whole tax basis too, because as more houses come online, then of course the levy is adjusted across those houses as well. So that kind of,
Good. Sums
Go-
it up
go.
good, thank you.
yes.
Let's go down to that.
Can I just-
Oh,
can I
yeah,
just
yeah,
finish?
sure.
Yeah, just Bonnie, on a 60% increase, that means that the dollar tax increase would be $121 for a $375,000 home. At 60%, that must mean that the current tax rate is about $200. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, you can definitely
the
see
previous
that.
year there. Mhm.
Yeah, go down.
Okay,
there,
Go
that's
down
you,
to
okay,
where it,
right.
yeah, go down to where it
Thank you.
shows
That was
the
under-
dollar value.
I just like to figure things out. Make sure they're right.
Yep, exactly.
Thank
You are reading it correctly.
Okay, why don't we start at the top on this one, and then just kind of walk them through that 2025. Or is it 20, yeah,
Yes.
2025,
So in the
2026.
2025 to 2026 column, I started out with the base $375,000 home today, which would go up slightly in 2026 according to our predictions. And where the average home's property tax value or property tax levy would be, and then also what that is on a per monthly basis to kind of give a perspective of how much an individual person would have on a per monthly feel. And then I put in some staggered steps of the different property tax market values in the district, up about $100,000 step each time. So there's a section for $375,000 homes is where it starts, and then it will go up to the $475,000 home range, the $575,000, the $675,000. You kind of get the idea of the different levels of where the homes, if their market value falls somewhere near that range, what the average would be for each individual home and then on a per month basis. Now, this one doesn't show the increase. We would have to do the math for that, but I was getting to a lot of rows and columns here, so I didn't want to just throw a bunch of numbers on there.
Yeah, but we went up to $1 million. is the
Yes,
point.
roughly
So
the
we-
975.
Yeah. So you can see, what the monthly is, that's important. People get scared by the percentage, but it all depends on where you start. And this is important. We should have been doing this for the last 5 years. And, gradually bring it up every year, but the end result is the same. That is, the bulk of this increase, again, is that is that short-term levy. That is a special levy just to address this debt issue. So it's not gonna be there forever. That comment was made at the CAC meeting that I was at too, and it really, I think I put in the memo, it's like a light bulb went off. My assumption was always that this was gonna be just a limited levy, but it wasn't transparent enough. It has to be stated that way, and so that's why in the memo, it will be listed as and on the books, it'll be listed as a special levy. So once that's done, $400, this scenario is $400 a month, or excuse me, a year, 400, excuse me, did I have that right? Yeah, 400,000 a year times 5 years. If we do 500,000 a year, then it's only 4 years. So it's the same amount of money, just, one's a slightly bit more aggressive. So that goes away. And can we move over?
How does a homeowner know that this is a special levy?
We tell them that. We have to tell
How
them.
do you tell them that though?
Well, we're going to have public meetings. And we're gonna
How
tell
does,
them
how
that
does
way.
it show on, how does it show on the property tax statement?
It'll be a special.
It'll still be under one line item under the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, won't it? It'd be just one line item.
No, I think they do subcategories too, because I've seen it under the city.
Well, I don't know about Washington County. I mean, Washington County's all broken down.
Yeah.
Already by category, but there's one line item for Comfort Lake.
There
Forest
is
Lake
now,
Watershed
because we
District,
only have one levy.
Yeah,
That's my point though, is that if you have separate distinct levies, it
Okay.
can be broken out as a subcategory. But there's,
so we've confirmed that we can do that?
pardon?
We've confirmed that we can have that special levy as a
Well, I
separate
see it on
line item?
Chisago County all the time, so I haven't confirmed it with
Yes.
Washington,
You can do that?
but
Madam
it,
President,
yeah,
the forms allow for the district to do that.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
It's an
okay.
option that some
That's good.
other districts have.
right.
Is it like a certificate of indebtedness? What instrument are you using here?
So on the levy certification form and through the resolution, we would identify the levy dollar amount for a specific
Purpose.
purpose.
Okay.
So some watershed districts have undertaken, because they were not allowed to levy sufficiently, they would use this option for example, like monitoring. They would say, we're going to levy for $100,000 of monitoring. So that was a
Okay.
special piece, but then the money is not available to be moved around. So if somehow they spend 80,000, that has to just remain for monitoring purposes. For the following year, it could not be used back to the general fund administration or
Okay.
anything else or other projects.
So it's designated separately, but it's still part of the levy. The tax.
Correct.
The
Yeah.
tax levy.
It's still part of the tax.
So you're not gonna see any differentiation on your tax statement.
Well, my question was, is there a separate line? Right now, there's one line item in Washington County, Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, X dollars.
Yep.
Is there going to be another line item right below it that'll say special assessment?
Well, that's the objective.
Yeah,
That's the
It's not a
objective.
special assessment though.
yeah.
And it's not a
Manager Anderson?
429 improvement- It's not a 429 improvement project that you're talking about here. It's just a classification in your levy that has to be spent for debt reduction.
That's exactly right.
Manager
But
Anderson,
Yes,
could I have the screen moved over? Could I have the screen
Yeah.
moved over one more column so we can see when this is supposed to expire?
yeah, I was just gonna ask that, so go ahead. Move it over.
Because it go from 26 to 30.
31, I think, is the expiration. Starts at 2026. This one goes 5 years. So it would be 2031.
Looks, to me, that looks more like 7 years when I look at, you know. We've
Nope.
got,
This, when you come in, Bonnie, you did the chart.
but
I think it's 5.
it's 5.2 million
There it is.
approximately.
There it is.
Okay, okay.
So it's on a separate line on the budget,
Oh, I
very
see.
clear to see. And then you can see the drop off. That's, I think what I said in my message is that you can see the drop off right there in 2031. So that 400,000 comes away and we're back to our normal levy items.
The table for individual homeowners doesn't reflect that though. Does it?
Well, it should,
They're not gonna know.
So I'm just looking at the, Madam President,
yes.
Washington County website, so they have a tab. So for, City of Forest Lake, and this is the property in your neighborhood, for example. And it has general, then miscellaneous. And that's in gross, so they have a tax dollar there, debt general obligation, they have a separate tax line item there. And they have debt other, but right now presently it's 0, but that's just a breakdown of the City of Forest Lake funds, so if somebody would wanted, and this is just on the county's property bureau website, public information. You could view it, view the breakdown and then.
If you go into that,
Correct.
yeah.
So. Whether I'm on your statements is probably not.
No,
broken down.
It's not, I don't know how it's gonna show up in our statement that way, yeah.
And my question about
And
the
that's, yeah.
400,000 is, it looks like the total debt payment per year until 2031 is gonna be close to between 550 and 600,000. So why are you only doing 400,000? If you look at the draft of the debt schedule, it goes out till 2034 and not until 2031 does it drop below 550,000.
That's the
No.
new of.
No,
I,
there's a,
no, it's the new of.
I'm just looking at the debt, the total, the 5 loans or the 4 loans. That is assuming there's a $300,000 loan this year and or a $500,000 loan this year and a $200,000 or $300,000 loan next year. Is that true?
She's got a different program. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're
well,
different.
let's look at that separate
Okay.
breakout,
We
okay?
went after revenue, we went after cost control plus revenue plus loans, so.
Okay, so I think I might be, I might be.
Under the levy summary document, for,
Yeah,
is that right, Bonnie? Under
If
the
you
levy
see it
summary?
on, if you go to the levy summary back to there, you and scroll to
There
the
we go.
top, you'll be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to see that there is a special line item just for the $400,000 called temporary special levy. That is to
Mhm.
erase the $1.9 million negative net position that we currently are in. Then there's this, if you go up a couple rows, there's the debt service levy. Now that is the debt service levy to service the current debt according to the debt service schedules and any estimated future loans that we would anticipate over the next couple years. So the two are definitely separate and distinct. And to make sure that the 400,000 is definitely just for the negative net position from the prior deficits that we have accumulated. So the debt service levy that is going to service the current debt of about 500,000 a year is also in there as a separate line item in this presentation as about 500,000 a year. So they are two separate line items to help keep that clarification there.
Yes,
Can you explain on 2026, our programs and project tax levies goes from 1164 down to 545,000. So that really reduces the increase even further because you've taken almost $1 million or 600,000 out of them. Why did that drop down like that?
Yes, we made an assumption on that one to transition from funding those projects and programs by levy to make sure that we had instead grants to cover those. And so the trade-off is that the appropriate place for that levy was to cover the payroll costs and overhead costs. And for this presentation, I kept that all together in the general fund just to simplify that and to be able to see the total overall watershed payroll and overhead costs. And I have that listed as the general fund levy. So that's the difference in that flip-flop there, is to account for those two things. Both we hope to have that increased and better alignment of our grant funding. And then also because I had moved the payroll costs out of the projects and into the general fund for this presentation to keep it all together. So hopefully that's not too confusing.
No, you're basically saying that you're gonna use grants to pay for our programs and or pay for our projects, basically, 100% grants, is that?
That's the idea,
Right.
is that,
Well, we
is
did the
that
same
we,
thing, so.
well, what we discovered is that we were only getting 60% of our 90%, 10% loans. So we knew that we had 10% to do out of in kind. And sometimes it came out as cash, not in kind, which means
Yeah.
that we're already paying for overhead, we're already paying for staff. And so that was just, to be presented to the state, and then we didn't have to pay that extra 10% out of pocket. The other thing was this preliminary work that is so important in a watershed district, which is scientific. And there wasn't any money coming through grants at that time for that critical piece. There are two more comprehensive grants now that offer that free payment, if you will, for our preliminary coverage. But in this budget scenario, as Bonnie said, it's better to align those costs with the actual action that is, and the work that's actually going to it. And that's the grants, that's the projects, and in some cases, the AIS program, for example, the two biggest programs we have is AIS and the boat launch inspections to keep AIS out of the lake. So it's all under that AIS umbrella, and there's more money available for that type of thing too. So the way that is represented here is that we want to put it over in projects and programs so that we can attack those new found sources to pay for the majority of that. And so that's the difference that you're seeing here between our other way to do it, our old way, and this is taking that other approach so that we can actually see what we're paying for overhead. The salaries, for example, in our current budget method is to take it down from the general fund and move it down to each of those project areas or each of the individual areas in the budget that staff is working on. But the better way to do it, the more transparent way to do it, is to keep it in that general fund area. So that's our taxes, our wages, our big expenses there, the rent, and other administrative duties. So it's overhead and administrative duties. So that's gonna be a difference in how to look at the budgets, but it's a lot more aligned with the government protocols for separation. And then you can go through that budget or report, and you can actually see what are you spending on wages, what are you spending on rent, and so on. So it makes it cleaner, and that's the other thing that the thought behind this one is too, is that we do not take on a project that we cannot fully fund that has grants available. So that is for everything. The preliminary monies, and sometimes it was quite a lot that we were levying that under the general fund. And we shouldn't be doing that. So we're going to stop that and not have, not plan for making that cost part of our general fund. Doesn't belong there. So we're gonna fight for money with these two new sources, like I said, they do cover that preliminary work, and so we'll be trying to do that always.
But Madam President, I got
Yeah.
a question, going back to the special levy.
Mhm.
So make sure I understand this. I think Bonnie mentioned that there's $1.9 million left to repay of the loans if you take a $300,000 loan in
No.
2026 and 2027.
No, it's 1.9 negative position is what we have, and most of that,
That negative 1.9 includes the 300,000 in 2025 and in 300,000 in 2026.
I don't think we have one in 20. Did we do a one in
There's one shown on
2025?
the
Have
sheet.
we
I'm
done it?
looking at.
Or you're
The
recommending that, I
1.9
think,
is
right?
purely historical. It's everything that's already happened prior to
Yeah.
2020, the end of 2024. That was based on the 2024 audit and where we ended after
Doesn't include
December
2025.
31st.
It's another half, I mean, yeah.
We took $500,000 in 2025.
Yeah.
And
So we're paying back 2 million, but really it's more than that.
actually, the total debt is 4.5 million.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Correct.
What do you mean by the 1.9? Shortage?
Madam President.
Go ahead.
So, well, by the end of the year, we'll have paid off a little bit more than $1 million of that original $5 million.
Okay.
Right.
So, but the 400 is for paying off for paying, bringing the net position back to 0. However, the debt itself is still then the remaining 4 million.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, which, what? Right, so that's a separate, that's why it's a separate levy, so. And that will be that. For
How many years?
whatever the next 9,
Well, at 400, are you talking about the 400,000? That's
no,
this.
not the
okay.
400. But,
Well, that's 2 million right there. If you do 400,000 times 5 years, it's 200 million, so.
We gotta step back a little bit. You gotta look at what's been accomplished.
yeah,
It's already, work's already done.
Yeah.
Lakes are finished. We've got probably $40 million worth of work that's been done for 15 or 20% of that. I mean, we've been very efficient in how we used our budgets and so forth. So the question is, we pulled loans forward because we wanted to accelerate the programs, because we know that the grants are ending with the one watershed, one plan. Next year, you cannot apply for grants and take it away for 1 year. So the pot's getting smaller and smaller, and as you know,
The competitive grants.
yeah, competitive grants. We were the number one grant
Yeah.
winner
In that category.
in that category for the last 5 years, and we're over $9 million.
10 years.
10 years.
And
We're the smallest watershed and in the smallest area. And so all I'm saying is the work's been done. It's just a question of how we're gonna pay for it.
Right, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Right, and so we're trying to do it with as least pain to the taxpayers we possibly can. We've already saved them millions of dollars. Had this work been done at $1,500 to $2,500 a pound rather than $150 and $100 a pound, how many pounds have we taken out of the watershed? Forest Lake alone is 900 pounds, 1,000 pounds.
Right, well, we're 93-94% towards goals, Emily, right, and the total. Trying to think of what the number is,
In the realm of 3,000, I think.
right? So, and I know from this recent conversation with Bowser staff. In talking about the moving from the competitive grant cycle to the one watershed plan, where it's more, they're looking at more as a distribution rather than, they don't want to have a competitive nature to it. So it's not going to be based off of numbers, so a lot of the work up front then, so early on, we knew that Bowser was planning to move to this one watershed, one plan approach. And that we were less likely, because we were the only entity that was really doing the diagnostic monitoring and showing the numbers. And that gave them a lot of confidence of the work.
We got a lot of money.
So we comprise about 0.5% of the total land area for the whole state. And that person had just because we were asking about it. And just communicated that we've received 6% of the total dollars of the Clean Water Competitive Grant money over the last 10 years.
And that's just out of non-local money, but the fact is that we've done it for like $100, $150 a pound. most small projects are done, the small projects was $1,500 to $2,500 a pound. And I can show you a whole list of projects on the south side of Forest Lake that we could do for anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 a pound. Half pound here, 2 pounds here, but when you find the big hits, the legacy load, 500 pounds, 280 pounds, the cost comes down to $150 a pound. And you know what the difference is? That's 10 times difference. And plus we've done it in a compressed time. It takes you a lot of small projects to get 500 pounds and a lot of money. We've got low cost and we got rapid compression of time. And that's why we've been able to get 5 lakes off the list. That's all the message we're trying to get out. Yes, have we made some oversights? And Manager Anderson has mentioned that, and it's come back to honest a little bit. We've had some bad breaks too. We had to run down our reserve because of a couple of things which we'll get into with more numbers for the public. On cost overrun, was one project we had, took 6 years to get because the landowner died. And we had to work with 5 owners then to get the property. And by the time we got the property, our grant stayed the same and how much did the construction cost go up? A couple 100%.
Well, but it went from a projected engineering grant or project from a little over 500,000 to over 1.5 million. And so.
So that was a big hunk out of the reserve.
But we
So,
have to-
okay, but so you can't predict that. We should have been a little bit less conservative.
Highway 61.
But we'll have a better story on this one. We don't want to take time tonight.
Yeah.
We gotta get that ready for the public meeting. You guys aren't gonna throw the tomatoes at least I hope you won't tonight. so.
Well, and I think, you know, that's the two things, the budget numbers and how do you present it to the public?
Right, and this is,
They're two huge
you're asking
things.
good questions and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, there's a bigger picture here and we're talking about the cat has left the barn. And the barn's all clean and we're all ready to go.
I don't think there's anybody on this side of the table that doesn't know what the district has done and how much we appreciate that.
And we're trying to
We're-
educate.
I'm here tonight representing and being a taxpayer
Mhm.
and saying, I don't understand this. Okay, how come you're talking a 60% increase? Okay, and did you guys screw up? Okay, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but is that my problem? Unfortunately, you know.
I guess the next question after that would be, what are you doing to help us? As far as, you know, you've been very aggressive, very successful in the last 5 years. And then therefore, we're in a bit of a hole financially. What are you going to do now? That's what the taxpayers are gonna wanna hear. What are you going to do now to reduce that? You can't be as aggressive as you have in the last
You
5
already heard
years.
One thing, we're gonna do, all the grants are gonna be paid for and a lot of the.
All the
programs are-
projects won't happen unless there's grant monies to be.
Correct.
Correct.
So we're gonna have to slow down, it's gonna take time, so that's gonna happen,
Mhm.
that's one thing, we've both done that, that's the only way we can get to it, is to have that rule put in, and we're getting the grants now, we're finding different ways to get grants.
So the iron enhanced sand filter, which is, I think the project cost $1,700,000 and some thousand. You got a grant for that right now, but it doesn't cover it all.
Everything except 67,000,
Pardon me?
everything except 67,000.
No, we need a 10% match, so that's required. So the 1.5 is gonna be 150, but probably a little bit more, but we're looking at ways to address some of that additional.
Okay.
Cause just like we did on the Highway 61 project, so we made additional requests. But it would be. I guess the caveat with it is that we haven't put out for bid yet.
Sure.
So we don't know what kind of numbers we're gonna get.
Sure.
The Highway 61 part, there were multiple factors in there, but one of it was just that between COVID. And then just an explosion of prices in terms of anything had to do with construction. Competition for workers, employees, and then just materials. And so we hadn't even looked at, do we, give back the money? Do we just not do the project? But again, when we looked at cost per pound, we're not gonna find another project in that realm. So that was a public decision. There was plenty of debate on it. And the decision was to move forward with it. So,
I would think that engineering has to be pretty close on that because you've done more than one of those already.
but the engineering estimate was done just prior to COVID.
For this project here.
No, for the previous one. This one, yeah, that's why it's
Yeah.
where it's at.
Yeah.
So.
So on this financial management plan sheet here. Under 2026. it says tax levy. I'm sorry, it says intergovernmental grants for 2026 is $1,498,535. And down below, you have the different shading of colors.
Mhm.
And the orange color is cost covered by grants. And on that, it's $1,798,575 is what you're saying the project costs are. Are you on? This is called the Financial Management
Is that-
Plan Combined Watershed
for-
Summary.
Let me go there.
No.
Yeah.
Is that
Our
ours?
proposal was,
This was from Jackie.
Jackie's, okay.
Yeah. So so I guess to answer, let me ask the question again. You're saying that you won't do a project unless you have your grant money. Well, this says here you're $300,000 short in your grant monies in 2026 to do this project.
Bonnie, do you wanna,
Let me see that again.
I can't hear you. We can't hear you, Bonnie. Emily, can you talk to
Bonnie,
her?
you're unmuted, but we can't get your audio for some reason.
Oh, there we go.
Check your, oh. No, it's still not working.
Hmm.
Oh, wait, try one more time.
Okay, is it coming in now?
Yeah.
All right. I think the difference that you're looking for there is that with the, I think you said a $300,000 difference is primarily,
This is our sheet.
yep, is primarily from a new CWP loan in that year.
Hang on for a minute, Bonnie. Hang on for a minute, Bonnie. Okay, can we just have one conversation
agree.
at a time here, please? Okay, go ahead, Bonnie. Start over. Sorry.
I believe the difference that we were looking at was 300,000, and that was an assumption that if we were taking out a $300,000 CWP loan, that was because we probably didn't have enough intergovernmental grants lined up to cover all of those costs. And so if you were to scroll down on that page even further, that shortfall in revenues over expenses is, keep going, is made up with that CWP loan proceeds. Now, if we did not get those loan proceeds, then we would have to have more grants to cover those costs. So I made that assumption that if we were taking out loan proceeds, it was because we probably weren't getting enough grants in for that year.
Yeah,
So okay, so in summary then, you can, or you are thinking that you would do projects as long as you can be 100% with loans.
no, not loans.
Well, then you just said you're taking on $300,000 loans for 2026.
Year.
That wouldn't-
Yeah.
Well, That's just,
That's what you just said.
but that's not a project though. That would be some part of a project. So,
Oh, it's
project is
2025
bigger.
now. Sometimes it takes time to
Yeah.
get a new grant approved. And so if these projects were already in the works and we didn't have a fully
yeah,
funded grant program yet to cover it, then that would be the need for a loan. And so that's why we put that $300,000 loan in there for that year instead, is my assumption, versus having the entire thing covered by grants. But we hope, I would think that we would have less and less reliance on loans, as the grant dollars would be something that we would be able to find and or then push projects that haven't started yet. But if this is a covering project costs for projects that have started, then it's most likely we might need a loan for that 2026 year, since it's already bumping up against 2026.
I think also though, the thought process here was that we still had 300,000 available on this current note that we have, right? And so there was talk about using that up in 2025 and keeping it there open just in case, because we still had that availability, but we can take it out of there. I mean, it doesn't matter to me right now because there's no intention of using that. So we can take that out easily enough. Are there any questions? I have to wrap this one up so we can go to the next presentation, but,
Yes, do you have a sheet
yeah.
that shows the over and under on expenses versus income and the effect on the reserve ratio.
Oh, yeah, let's show the reserve. That's something that's really exciting. Because it increases to a really good level. I think sometimes, you know, we just kept doing with this algorithm, but we certainly can move that down if we need to, but the way it's set up here, there it is, right there, the fund balance. And this would be, it's the year end, right? The year end going to the next.
Yes, if you scroll down a little bit further too, I think you'll see the unrestricted.
There it is.
There
it
we
is,
go.
unrestricted reserves, Yep. Yep. So that's what we end up with. It gets in 2027. It goes up. I think that's. Why does it go up so much there? I can't remember why that jump is almost $1 million. Is that just the overture?
It's because
Yeah.
we're making up for that negative net position.
Yes.
Now, the net position is
Mhm.
calculated on a different basis of accounting than the fund balance, so it's
Okay.
it's hard to see both at the same time. Government accounting sure is fun that way.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you think this is the year that you should focus on? And I understand everybody needs 6 months operating funds, that's
Mhm,
standard.
mhm.
Is this the year to say, let's make a jump in that? Or is this the year to say, maybe we should reduce that reserve down a little? Not good policy, but it'll impact the tax base.
We're so tight right now that we have
Yeah.
had really a hard time in May. You know, making things work.
Cash flow wise,
Yeah.
Yes, and we don't get our first,
so.
the budget we're working on right now for 2026, we don't get that first tax. Let's say it's $1 million. Okay, we get 500,000 in June,
Mhm.
or excuse me, in July. It usually comes right around the 4th of July.
Mhm.
One year it was not until the middle. That was scary. And then in December,
Mhm.
around mid-December, you get the other 500,000. So you're basically working on the cushion that you created from this unrestricted reserve to get through that first half of the
Those,
year. And
those
it's-
issues I talked about on the project that went over by $1 million, that was taken out of the reserve.
Mhm.
And that's why we got ourselves into this position. If we had not had that problem, we'd be able to get by. But right now, it's, you know, we just can't. We've gotta go in and get some more money.
But the point is though, is that when, and Bonnie, you're gonna have to jump in here to make it all nice and pretty with accounting language, but when you have a deficit, any deficit, it doesn't have to be $2 million, but you've got this big hole that you have to take care of, but you've gotta replenish it. You've gotta pay it off, but you've gotta replenish that too. So it's not just a one-time thing. Can you add to that, Bonnie, so it's clear to
Sure,
them?
I just had one thought on fund balance, that there's a recommendation from the League of Minnesota Cities. Now, this covers just general governmental entities, that a governmental entity should try to aim for having a 50%, 50% fund balance reserve to cover their first half expenditures for the year prior to their property tax levy coming in. And you can see we're quite low in that 28% range. It's right there on row 64, Emily. I don't know if you can highlight that. But we were at 28% in 2024. There is one problem in that entire amount that we have is not necessarily available to even be spent, which if you look at rows 67 through 70, those are restricted fund balances that we're not really supposed to spend because they have been restricted for the instance that we collected the levy for. So like debt service, stormwater impact funds, grant revenues that are already been received that are in programs and our projects that we can't spend on other things, which left us only an unrestricted reserve in 2024 of $300,000. And that won't get very far on paying payroll or overhead costs. And that is the big scary risk, is that it may look like our position is not so bad if you look at total fund balance. But when you really look at the available spendable fund balance for overhead and operation costs, that's where we run into the trouble, and where that $1.9 million negative net position on the net position accounting side of it really hits home too. That we've spent that money down, and that's why it needs to be replenished. And that's where we're talking about that 6 months worth of reserve. And it's a good policy if you spend half the year waiting for your first levy to come in, that you need a 50% fund balance reserve to cover your next year's first 6 months.
Okay. Is there anything else, Bonnie, that you feel we need to point out to them? I think the highlights were the ones I wanted to point out, and we'll look into that 300,000 more, but again, it's easily taken out. It was just an assumption that we would
Yep.
want to spend it. Yeah.
I think my only final thought that is that I'd really tried in this projection to cover our base costs of payroll and overhead and required debt service payments, and then also recover that negative deficit that we're in. And so this isn't a doom or die situation. This is a recoverable situation. It's just hard right now to make those choices and those decisions, but I think you can easily get to the point in the next 5 years to be very comfortable not relying on loans and debt. And I just want to encourage you to continue working as a watershed that way, because we want you to do the good work of the watershed. What's the point of being the watershed if you can't do the work? So I hear the good things that you guys were talking about earlier, and I commend those actions, and I think that's really great.
Yes,
Madam President, also, I just think that some of the things that we've been talking about, that's not necessarily incorporated into these particular numbers, is some, further additional cuts, like. So I just asked the staff, I said, what's the bare bones monitoring budget? What would that look like? So our camp budget, which is really mostly, it's about $12,000 plus the staff time to collect information or the samples. And plus, if we did the annual report, because there would be less information, and then we cut the diagnostic monitoring and try to go after Bowser to change the way that they approve those things. So currently you have about $200,000, and we've been doing about $200,000 of monitoring for many years. We have our very solid baseline information. Our diagnostic stuff that's been our bread and butter. There are some things we're concerned about with Shields Lake, for example, that would benefit from some additional work, but we can hold off on some of those types of activities. But they're currently not included in there, but it's a point of discussion that the board could have.
yeah, well, and we always should. I mean, here's the reality though, when you're already efficient, it's hard to find sizable dollars to make a difference. And yeah, we might be able to cut it down from 200,000 to 100,000, but what's that gonna do with a budget of 5 million, 4 million? We're already there. It's hardly, hardly gonna help. But we always are doing that, but we work really efficiently now. I just wanna make sure that everybody understands that. There's just not that much cutting to do. There's some, but not a lot. Okay. Any other comments, Bonnie, that you wanted to make before we exit stage left?
I was just gonna say thank you for letting me speak tonight, and if you have any questions, feel free to forward them through Jackie, and I will hope to answer them as best I can.
Thanks for all your hard work. Really appreciate it. It gives us a new perspective on a new way to look at things, so appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Steve?
Yeah, Emily, we're probably gonna have to show some backup charts, so you might wanna start looking for some of those, like the costs that staff cut and so forth, in case we wanna just show them that, so I'll just give you a heads up on that. I'm gonna start with page 2 of that long sheet you've got. It's on the back side. It's right with the yellow column, yeah, okay. If you look. And by the way, this was put together by actually staff. Went through and we started with using averages and then we decided to go back and actually try to do the best job we can in the next 2 years, identifying all the possible projects we might have and programs. And you're gonna see that back up here. So we've got a fairly strong base on that. And Emily has been working with staff to pull all that together. So she'll be coming in here with comments and so forth. And we'll make our assumptions as we go through. But I wanted to show you on 2026 that we originally, based upon your comments from CAC, we had a 25% increase in the levy on 2026. And because that's probably gonna be hard to fly, we tried to get it down to around 20 or maybe below in the 19s. So that's been reduced, but to do that, we had to add 200,000 back in a loan for one more year to get over the hump. So that, and then the 1784 is all documented on that sheet I just gave to Jerry. So all those grants are documented and they're all earned grant income. We have other grants that are not in here that were another 500, another 719,000 that are uncertain grants where we're not sure we're gonna earn it yet, but it's stuff in the hopper. So everything in here is valid.
Oh, I have that page. Is that the one you're looking at now?
Yeah, just.
Yeah, the backside of that.
It's on the back of this first page.
Oh,
So that brings us down to 4.4 million in revenue.
Thank you.
So then going down to expenses, just run down, they're pretty much standard. You see where we've taken some money out here and there, but I want to show this because at the bottom line there, we've taken out $291,000 out of the 2026. And, you know, and Manager Anderson, this is stuff that we've been using in the past, but we feel maybe in the next couple of years, we don't have to do quite as much monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been trying to pull those $5,000 and $10,000 or $20,000 numbers together. And we reduced it by 291, and that'll be projected out now for the next 2-3 years at a lower level than it was in 2026. So that will contribute something towards reducing the levy. So then revenue over and under then is 2.1. So then we want to go next to that small graph, 10-year projection.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Real fast, why do we have negative numbers here? Can we make that positive?
Where's that?
It's on, in the 2025 total budget.
It's already happened.
Oh, yeah, this is part of, where we're going.
No, that's the estimate for year end.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, it's come down by 250,000. So it used to be 450, so they've been able to pull some money dollars out.
Yeah, but we don't have it in 2026. So that's good, okay.
Right, so we have a surplus. So if we go over to the other chart, again, I'm just gonna go across the rows now. So our levy in 2026 is 2.167. And the percent levy increase is at the bottom of that box. You see it says current year adopted levy decrease from last year. So in 2026, we had a 20% increase. Then we're proposing a 14.2, 13.2. And because we pulled in a lot of cash and because our goal is to return some of it back to the citizen, we could put a 0 in there for the following year. Negative 7.2, 0 again, negative 7, 0 again, and negative 1.8 would be the long-term plan. And so basically what this does is it ties it, instead of having a 60% increase, which is going to be hard to sell, we kind of spread it over 3 or 4 years. And the goal here is that it took us 4 or 5 years to build up this loan debt position we have. So it's kind of unrealistic to expect that we get everything fixed in 2026. So that's why we have an extra 300,000 there to get over the hump. But you can see right away that it jumps. If you look at our outstanding balance on the reserve right above that, in 2026, it was 27%, then it's 30, then it's 22, then it starts jumping up because the levy kicked in, the small increases, 40, 48, 45, 47, 47, 47. And you notice that the budget's balanced in those years is zero net in there. So that's kind of the overall picture, that our goal is to say, just like they were saying, we have a limited time, but we're gonna use this budget and then this levy, and then we're gonna try to move back towards where we were before, wherever we possibly can. So The other point I wanna make is on line 2, earned grant revenue. The earned grant revenue is to cover all the grant, 100% of the project grant and 20% of the program grants. And all the land grants. So basically, if you look down on new projects line and expenses. And other ongoing programs. You'll see that the total of those numbers are covered by that earned grant revenue above. So in our forecast, we've got that covered all the way across. So there's a formula for that, and so so we're gonna cover that. Then when we have other revenues, which is straight projection, and then you see the loan repayment schedule. We hit our max in 2029 and 2030, then the loan repayment starts dropping, and by 2034, we're down to 87.5, almost paid up. And you can see in fact, in 2023, it'll be zero, the loan will be paid off in 2034, if you look at the bottom, outstanding debt balance at year end. So in 2033, it's 87,000 and it drops to zero in 2034. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention is wages and benefits are projected out the same numbers as Jackie used. Administration, same way. Plant and engineering are small, so of course, all projected out. So that pretty much lays out what we've been able to put together here in terms of having an upfront payment and then backing off and trying to return some of that money or using it for something else if we have to at a later date. But we don't have that challenge of selling a 60% increase, which I think can be difficult. But the thought is the same. We're trying to pay this off in the first 3 years, and then from there we reduce the levy increases that we had before. Emily, do you want to make any other comments, or did I miss any assumptions or key points that you had put into this thing?
Thanks, Steve. Just a quick clarification regarding the projections. So the actual project costs are going to vary year by year. You know, we are just in the early stages of our flood resiliency planning. We're going to be meeting with the cities. We're going to be seeking grants to do more project development. And some of these projects are going to be really big, multi-million projects, most likely. We're not going to do a multi-million project every single year. But the goal with this is, you know, whatever numbers you want to use to kind of do these projections, if you commit to saying, you know, 100% or as close as possible to 100% of it is covered by grants, then this projection works. You know, whatever that number ends up being, you just need to bring in an equal and opposite revenue to defer it. So really the projects are going to be covered by grants and hopefully working with partners. It's really just making sure that we can cover our operating costs and our loan repayments. And that's really what we need the levy for.
Just like Manager Anderson, we'll have to, the levy will be used mainly for the operating costs and the major core programs that we offer to the public. And we'll do everything else with grants pretty much, so. So again, on new projects down there, we actually have a list for 2027, which is 739,000. And 2028 is harder, but we've been able to work and we're now starting moving into flood control. And by the way, that's going to be a very interesting thing. Downtown Forest Lake is built on a wetland. So but anyway, that's going to be a fairly big year, we think. So as mentioned before, that this will be up and down depending on what grants we can get and also what projects become approved with the city and so forth, working together. So again, I think we have a very strong base in 27 and 28 in terms of all the projects we've got in place right now, and we use that as a way to kind of take an average and project forward on that. There'll be some up and down, but again, it'll be covered by grants, 100% for the land for the projects, and 20% of all programs will be covered by grants, which will help quite a bit in the operating income. Questions?
Yeah, so. Steve, the earned grant revenue is $1,784,620, says excludes uncertain grants, okay? Then on your your budget here, you have new projects for 2026 of $1,862,933. So if what you're saying is true, should you not be saying you're gonna acquire $1,862,000 in grants? And you're only showing $1,784,000 in grants.
That's all we have in here for 2026.
I know, but I'm saying,
So-
what you're saying is that you're not gonna do a project unless you have the grant money. And so you're saying you're gonna acquire $1,784,000 in grants, but you're gonna spend $1,862,000.
I could
I'm
take
just
that
saying
if you want, Steve.
Yeah, sure, Emily. I think there might be go ahead.
So that one, we're moving into kind of a new realm of grants and looking at different types of grants. You know, the Lassard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Fund doesn't have a minimum match. And so we can put forth the leverage that is, you know, all staff time. And so you truly are covering it 100%. That is what we're talking about for the projections. Like when we're just trying to put some numbers out there for 2027 and beyond, we're trying to use, you know, that sort of ideal as a projection. For 2026, this is based on actual grants that we have in hand. Now, that Heath Avenue Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, we got a grant for just about $1.5 million from the Clean Water Fund Projects and Practices. I think that's the largest one they've ever given out. But that program requires a 10% match. It used to be 25%, and now it's gone down to 10. Normally, you know, if it was another program, we'd say, oh, well, we'll leverage the staff time, everything else is 100% covered. That $1.6 million project, our staff could not come up with, you know, enough hours to equal the 10% match. So there was some actual costs, engineering and construction that we needed to go toward the match. That being said, we are leveraging multiple grants. We are part of a grant program, a federal grant program through the Section 319 Small Watersheds, which means we were selected, we built a plan, and we are kind of part of this select group that gets these installments of federal grant funds. And we are due for our next installment in 2026. Now, a federal grant can cover the match for a local or for a state grant, such as the Clean Water Fund. And so we're really looking for, you need to find a federal grant to cover that match. And so we're hoping that 319 funding comes through and, you know, we are scheduled for it and deserving of it. However, uncertainty at the federal level means we might not get that grant. And so it's kind of throwing a wrench in our plans a little bit. And so we could delay that project 1 year and still be able to hold on to that Clean Water Fund grant. But it's when you're overlapping multiple grants, there's timelines involved and there's eligibility involved.
And again, we won't know till we put it out for bid.
What the real value.
What the real construction is,
yeah,
and then if we're over or under, we currently have 3 grants where we're looking to return money because we've had more competitive bids in the last couple of cycles. But again, this competitive grant piece is not even available this year. They've shifted so much of it to the One Watershed One Plan format.
So again, to summarize, this, much like what Jackie was saying, we're trying to position this and we'll do a better job with the public that this is gonna be a 3-year levy increase, fairly heavy levy increase. But then it starts going back down to 0 or even negative, so we can control it from there on in. And so it'll be kind of like a one shot to get this thing paid off and get back into a situation where we wanna be. The other thing about this is that I think we took an approach of taking all the degrees of freedom to try to get this thing solved. We looked at some cost control, we looked at loans, we looked at some. So I think this approach is multi-approach, and this is something we did at 3M all the time. When they say, okay, tight times, everybody's got to deliver 8%. You don't go out and cut all your research budget out. So you're done for the next 3 years, you know, so you cut a little out of research, you take some out of sales, you take some out of marketing, on down the line, everybody's got to kick in a little bit of money, but you don't put a big hole in the ship somewhere. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do here. We've taken out some costs, even though we run effectively, and we still feel we have to give up some of that money right now in the short term to get over the hump. But we still had to put a loan in there, which I know a lot of you don't like because it's not true revenue, but it does get us over the hump. And we're still looking for stuff, so we're working on make a decision here, we have till the end of, in sometime in December to finally use that number or a lower number as our final number.
Right.
So if we say we're gonna do 21%, we hope to get the 19 or 18 or something like that. But in the meantime, we gotta go through hell with whatever we put out there for the first part of September, right? And they could care less if we come down to 17 in December, so we'd like to get it as low as possible for those meetings. And to make everybody's life a little easier. So that's kind of where we're at. I think this may have a better chance of selling in terms of the background work we've done and so forth, although Manager Anderson system works too. It's just a different philosophy, and it's a question of, you know, how do we wanna, what philosophy do we wanna pick?
Yeah,
And which one is gonna be easier to sell?
because we have, excuse me, more of these big projects coming up, district wide. You know, that's when we talk about floodplain and resiliency and all of that, that's really more of a district wide impact. And the other option, you know, to do something long term is to bond, gather all of those projects together, say it's gonna be a 6-year effort or whatever it's gonna be. And if you can't get it from Lassard Sams, then you could bond for it, which is what all the cities do and the counties do. And what you're doing is getting the money up front, just like buying a house, and then you stretch it out over 15 or 20 years. So that's an option, but not for us right now, because we've got this debt service issue, we've got this negative position. And they won't, you know, they won't give us any money that way.
And by the way, 80% of the loans we took were zero interest, that's why we did it. I mean, it was, nobody was taking this money, we took.
Well, even.
No, I don't think anyone, I think it all made sense back then when all this was done.
Until we had some surprises, and we should have been less conservative
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
protecting ourselves.
Bingo,
Too bad we couldn't buy an insurance policy.
bingo, we should have,
Or not.
Should have and would have, yeah.
we should have been increasing our.
Part of that comes from you guys saying we can't raise the levies. I fought against the levy the last 2 years,
Yeah.
increase. So
So,
partially my fault.
I think this year is kind of critical what the district does from a levy standpoint, because if you've watched or know what's going on, and Forest Lake, their draft right now is 16.4% levy increase, okay? This County Washington has proposed 6.4%. I don't know what Forest Lake School District is doing. So you add those plus, you know, a 60% here, and that's the way you go. It's gonna be very, very difficult for a taxpayer
It isn't,
to swallow. Because it'd be
Absolutely.
one thing if it's just one, but when you got 3 major significant levy increases in 1 year, yeah.
well, I understand that, but what's important, especially for a small entity like we are. When you talk about 50 or 60%, it's not the same impact as with the others, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah.
To get that message out.
Thing is, like
Mhm.
one of the members said a week ago at our meeting, you know, if I'm paying $300 to the watershed in my taxes and it goes up to 425, it's $125. I mean, that's a nice dinner out, but that's a big percentage increase.
Yeah.
Some people get hung up on the percentages, other people
I know.
look at it from a dollar.
Right, and look what you get for that non-aid you're paying. Look at what the water quality is right now and everything else. that we've been in.
80% of the people in our district do not know what the watershed district
Exactly.
is. Maybe it's 85 or 90%.
Yeah.
So you're having to sell something to people who don't even know who you are.
Mhm.
All they're gonna see is a number and say, what?
Well, then you can come to the meeting and
That's
find out.
exactly right.
But they won't.
Well, that's fine, then we can pass our levy.
What you don't wanna, just as a caution to the district, what you don't wanna get into is what you went through when you're trying to buy pizza
I
puff.
know, that's why I say that. We've been through that, so.
And that group is still out there.
And
And so be
this
cautious,
issue really hasn't surfaced public like at all, at
I
all,
know,
at all.
but it,
There's been.
Oh, I know.
but it could, and it will, when it becomes public.
Well,
Well, I mean, Madam President, I mean, it's been in the paper, you know, so there's been.
I asked Jackie a week ago, how many people attended your truth and taxation meeting? 2,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
And
Over the
that's
years,
standard,
over the
that's
years.
Yeah.
standard.
We raised it 20% 2 years in a row, about 9 years ago, when we had to move into the project stage.
Yeah.
But that was on an even smaller budget, you know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it wasn't even shown on the statements at that time.
Well, no, at that point, the Washington County tax statement did not have a separate line
I
item
know.
for
It was so
Washington.
small.
It was just all one group for special
Right,
assessments.
right.
So we worked our way out of that.
Right. But this, you know, a 60% will unfortunately, will explode.
How do you feel about 19 or something like that?
Well, here's my concern with that, is that if you do it, if you do it 20, 20, and 20, let's say.
Yeah.
Your basis goes up every year. And so that 20% is more. If you do it all at one time up front, yeah, there might be some.
Base still
screaming
goes
about
up
it.
though.
Pardon me?
The base still goes up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No. If
Oh,
you go
the-
60%. It goes up to 60%. I
That's
mean,
it.
it doesn't drop
Not for
the
this
following
one.
year, then you go 7%
But
after
that's-
that and
that's what I-
8%, and it's up there. The
That's what I
base
was
is-
trying to explain before, is because it's separated out as its own special levy, you
Mhm.
don't get that impact, because it's the same amount every single
But,
year.
but the other thing you gotta consider, 60% you're taking it all at one time and you got that, factor. If you can buy another year, we got 14% in there for next year, right?
Yeah.
If we can buy another year, we don't have to do 14. We may have more information. We may have better situation. We might be able to do way less than that. And then we've got to,
What if you were to go 4 years, because on the fourth year, you've got nothing.
well, we don't need it in the fourth year. I'm trying to, I had,
But then the previous years could be less.
huh?
You've got 20, 14, 13, 0.
Well, we're trying to get our reserve up too at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's what I do, yeah.
Which it
But
is,
you're right, I'm thinking about doing that, maybe we should make it 16 and put them in the next 3 years, and another year.
Much more palatable to the
Yeah.
public.
So we can look at that option too.
It's not easy.
But at this time, I think 1 year at a time, trying to forecast 3 years is tough. I mean,
Oh,
even when you have the data we have here, but if you can get by 1 year, we got a whole next year to learn and decide what we want to do the following year, and that gives us much more control of our situation than asking everybody for 60% right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's why I like that. I can do much more with another year of information, good or bad, so.
Well, I just wanna make sure the district is cautious about, if the decision is to do the 60%, and that's your decision, obviously, from a board standpoint. That the repercussions of that you may not want, unfortunately.
Mhm.
It may take up too much time.
It'll take up a lot of your time.
Right.
And I'll be on the news again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Steve.
I mean, if we can get to the same conclusion by doing 20 and something less each 3 or 4 years. I think it's easier to get under the umbrella. People
Well,
won't.
you don't even have to tell them what you're gonna do next.
No, you don't, but the point is that, you know, they're not gonna think of anything of 14% if it was 20% last year. It's 14% this year. That's how people think.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the fact is that it's coming down, I'm assuming.
That's my point, is that it has come down.
And then, and you can see it go 1 to 0 and then negative. So we have an opportunity to pay back and go back if they want us to, but then maybe they're gonna be in love.
The
Maybe they
85,
want their.
the 85% of the people in the district aren't gonna care about your transparency and giving information. They're not even gonna look at it. All they're gonna look at is, what are you doing to my taxes?
That's the real,
That's the real world.
yeah, it
unfortunately.
is.
Till they get flooded out.
Even then, they don't know what you are.
Yeah, right, and for years, I've always felt like, having
Is somebody talking?
been out and talked to people. That
I'm trying
nobody
to,
knows something.
this is Chris. Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, if you have any questions.
No, I just wanted to point out what you said, Steve. Nothing we can do about it now, but I'm hopeful that the watershed can take this situation and try to prevent it in the future. If you remember, Jackie and I were advocating for a higher levy increase last year and we didn't get it passed. And as you just stated 5 minutes ago, that would have put us in a slightly more desirable position.
Yes.
I
So-
agree.
And I was so happy to have you come over to my side, because 4 years before that, I was all alone. That's the only reason I voted against the budget all those years, because it's just, I kept saying, that's not enough, that's not enough. We've got to cover that. So thanks for bringing that up, Chris. It's absolutely true.
I agree, I'm hoping
Yeah.
that.
Well, no, I appreciate that, Steve, and I know you're going to be involved with the watershed longer than I am, and I just hope that this can be something that is remembered in the future to hopefully prevent this not dire but unfortunate situation that we have to
Mhm.
figure out this communication plan so we don't end up in another
right,
You know, repeat of Aqua. So thank you. That's
Yeah.
all.
thank you.
Yeah.
Are you concerned, I'm concerned about that bottom line where it's showing that we're not up to our requirement or our goal, if you will, for the reserves?
The auditor said the reserve has to be 33%.
50%, you just heard talk about that.
That's
the
Yeah.
goal.
Mhm.
That's the
And that's
goal.
what, and that's
The
what,
auditor said 33
and
is
that's,
fine.
and that's,
But
yeah,
we can
it's
actually,
tight.
I've got plenty of room here to add that back in
Yeah.
if I needed to.
That's where we were before.
We were at 126% when I had our first increases, and 156% by then, so we had to put some of it back to the customer.
Did you have a question, Mike? or-
Yeah,
There are just two items, there's one that I think on from the district's governance manual has a statement, the district passed a policy about that. And I think it was a minimum of 30% and we'd have to go back and look at it, but I'm just,
Mhm.
so.
Well, Bonnie just told us what the recommended is for the cities, and I think that's a good, we don't have that kind of dedication with watershed districts, you know, where we get all this, how to do it and kind of stuff like that background. But I know you've done, I've referred to the Minnesota cities booklet
Right,
for practices and procedures that are good, and 50% is a comfortable amount, more than 23 or 25 or 30, because it's just, I don't wanna be in that situation where you can't think about the next month because there's no pennies in the till, you know?
So by the way, just to remind everybody, we needed to look at the timing on this,
Mhm.
so that part, so we gotta make sure we have some time to do that. Plus, we haven't heard from the other board members, we should vote tonight. I think.
Well, no, not tonight. We're gonna have another meeting where we can digest all of this, come to where we want to be as a group.
Okay,
And then go from there. What I wanted to talk about tonight, now, do you have a separate one that you were going to give budget, or is?
no, I started out with working with averages,
Okay,
and I thought that wasn't very realistic, and then we were able to work together and get this, all the
Okay,
other information.
so we went down from
That's
three,
it, yeah.
three alternatives to two.
Right.
Okay, that's fine, that's even better. What I wanted to talk about tonight, well, first of all, do you have any more questions on the two budget approaches? Okay,
I had,
yes.
there's a large number here under, land acquisition and management, 2,466,000.
That was the Lassard Sands grant.
I'm sorry.
What you wanna talk about it?
So, Madam President.
Yeah.
So, Randy, so the district had applied for, I think, 3 years ago to, acquire a critical piece of property south of Bone Lake. So, and that was through the Lachar's St. Alta Heritage Fund, so it's through the legacy amendment piece, so we go, there's a committee with the legislature. And so we proposed this, and that's the dollar amount we received, we've been able to negotiate with the landowner and acquire. The wetland area that we wanted with some highland as well. We have an application right now for phase 2 later this month. For some additional work on that particular property in terms of enhancements and things like that, for another 1.4 million. We also have another request through that same entity of 3.3 in terms of the greenway flood resiliency work in the Sunrise River corridor area. But that's,
Okay, but I'm
that's,
still, what's the 2.466 for?
that's the land acquisition.
Land acquisition.
I thought there was a grant involved. It is.
Correct, that money will come in and then go back out. to-
Oh, so it's an in and out. It's in and out.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we got
That's
two
what
grants
the
for that.
confusion was.
And what, Emily?
I just want to note that we got 2 grants for that. That's another one where we overlapped multiple grants. And because Lassard Sams doesn't have a minimum leverage, we could pay for, the remainder of that acquisition cost with a second grant. But that second grant does have a 10% match. And we believe that we can fund most of that through the staff. And so that's people filling out their timesheets and recording that staff time. And so we can hopefully meet that minimum match for that second grant with the staff time.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about the opportunity that we have to push our submission date to the counties to the 30th. of September. And, as I mentioned to you.
I have to call, I didn't get to.
Okay. Okay, this, I don't know how I stumbled across this now, I don't remember, but, anyway, there is a small, entity, section apparently of the levy, or excuse me, the tax, area at the state. And so it's under rules, it's 207 chapter in the manuals or the state, legislative booklet for laws. And so all of these small entities, and watershed districts are at the very top of this list of about, I would say 30 special units of local government. That's where we're placed. And those folks get to have a submission date of the 30th of September. In the watershed section chapter, it says the 15th. And so we talked to the attorney about it and back and forth, and he thinks that there will be, he has to do this, he has to tell us what the good and bad is of that. The good is that we get more time, we're on that special list, and so it shouldn't be a big deal. The guy at the state told me that,
This is
how you asked for
Taped,
it,
you know,
pardon me?
this is being taped.
Yeah, that's fine. Why? I mean, it's just, I'm just giving them a background. I'm not saying anything I shouldn't say.
It's a statute. It's a statute. I mean, no, it's been discussed before.
I mean, most people don't know about it, so why, well, just doesn't make a decision, not have to talk about it now. I'm against talking about it, actually, myself, so.
There's nothing,
It's an
Or is it not?
opportunity. There's nothing bad about it. They're both in law. That's the point. And that our attorney, because it has, from the attorney's perspective, in his mind, that shows precedent. But when I talked to him about the person that's in charge, he's the head guy, for these small entities, were the top of the list. And they did that because watersheds were complaining about not having enough time. And so they put it into that rule for their agency. And the way to get it is to just talk to your county auditor. It took me 3 minutes. I called the Chisago County Auditor, told her what we were up against. We wanted more time to pick the right one, right path for the budget. And we wanted more time so that we could notice the information meetings and hopefully, draw bigger crowds. And so she said, okay. All you have to do is have the administrator send an email that says, yes, we asked for this, and it's all official. It's on letterhead, the administrator's doing it. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get the same reaction from Washington County. And so if the board votes to go forward with it, that gives us that extra 2 weeks to get the right product done, whatever corrections we wanna make or changes, get the right budget done, and then we have still all that time to get the public informed. So to me, that is taking precedent over Chuck's slim concern. All these scenarios he gave us were slim, that somebody might, create a fuss about it, but the positives are on our side, and there's a method to do it. And the people that really have the insight are the people at the counties that accept all of these submittals for levy and have to deal with it. So I feel comfortable with it. And I think we could use that time.
You said September 30th?
September 30th. Yeah, normally it's September 15th, or it has been in the past.
Providing Washington County agrees.
Yes, provided.
I'm
they
gonna
do.
call them tomorrow and find out.
But we need to get the board's approval, though, in order to move that forward. I think it's a great idea. You're gonna talk to the county. We know that Chisago's on board. I'm pretty sure Washington will be. But the board should vote on it to let us proceed on that pathway. So I will make a motion to ask the counties for permission to submit our budget on the 30th of September instead of the 15th. Under the small meeting clause. or small entity, I'm sorry, small entity clubs.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves.
You'll wait to pull us before you get on.
Oh, Andrea,
I can't, who was that?
That was Chris.
Just pull us before you
I'm
go.
gonna go aye and then I gotta go.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
I'll step aside while we.
Yep.
Is it okay if I get on the plan?
Can you take this? Let me take the bag.
Oh,
Let me take the backpack.
We need.
Here, I'm
we need-
gonna
I'm sorry,
mute
go ahead.
Chris, and then do you want to have he needs to go. Do you want to have discussion before roll call, or do you want to take the roll call?
I think it's pretty clear what we want to do. Let's do the roll call.
Okay, I can call the roll. So, I'm gonna
Sure.
go ahead and call Manager Loth first.
Yes, thank you.
Chris, you can go ahead and unmute now. We were just getting background noise, so we didn't want to,
Can you unmute him?
I can ask to unmute, which I have done. I can't unmute anyone. All right, we're gonna circle back to Chris. Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
President Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki is absent. Manager Loth, if you're able to unmute, we can collect your vote.
He already said yes. I think we can count that. It's on record in his own voice that he voted yes, so I think he's okay.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. Make a breathe deeper now.
Okay, have fun,
Okay.
guys.
So
Yeah,
when we get
Good thing to pay
closer,
is so good.
when we get closer to having to do the plan for the open meetings. the
But we
public
have to
meetings,
vote then Thursday night, sure. That's,
or what?
well, it depends on what we get.
For our budget?
Yeah, for our check.
We need to come up on Thursday with another workshop. So that we can have time to look through these things and make sure that we're all comfortable with the decision. And that's gonna take some time, and there's a lot of activity that's happened in just the last 2 or 3 days,
How many public meetings do you have to have? One?
just one.
That's good.
Right here, no, that's what needs to occur.
Was that?
We need one hearing.
One
Yeah.
hearing, and that hasn't been scheduled yet.
Correct, and that's what we've been.
We don't have a budget to take to that, so we wanted to sit with you guys first, Pat, and get more feedback from you. And some direction, and you've given that twice. And so really helpful to get your comments, really is.
one of the things I do appreciate, the sense of urgency that's been brought up this year, that it didn't hear it as much last year. It didn't, and I think that was why, many of us on the CIC said, slow down that tax increase, because I don't think we heard the sense of urgency about the position last year that was
Yeah.
brought up this year.
That's because we had these incidents that occurred that ate into our reserve. We had a healthy reserve. We lost $1 million on that one project, and we had costs that come in that we, like the milfoil and Forest Lake, we had to pay for.
What he's saying, though, is that we didn't tell them. We
Yeah,
didn't tell them that was going on. We didn't make any effort to make up for that in
No.
our budgets. It was all keep it down to this 4% level. That's ridiculous. In a district that's as active as we are and still pretty new, there were a lot of projects that we had to do, a lot of them. And so you can take 100 years to do it, or you can do it in a very short time frame. But you've got to stay on top of your money. So there were a lot of things that were going on that we didn't really have, clearly in our minds, I guess, is that we were paying for preliminary work that we should never have had to pay for. All that engineering to get the project targeted and prioritized and measurable. We were the only district that was doing the follow-up monitoring so that we could make sure to tell the public that this was successful. It's not done by an algorithm in a computer app. It was realistic scientific data. So we know that now, we gotta make up for our mistakes, and We either do it slow or we do it fast.
I have a
Yes,
question for Mike. Are you, for the truth and taxation, are you going to just be publishing the standard legal publication that requires us to have a public hearing at such and such a date on our upcoming budget? Is that what you're gonna be publishing?
Right, and then, so the delay right now in getting that set is that you also need to put out what your proposed budget is, what your proposed levy
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So since that hasn't been yet determined, so, and I certainly advocate that we do it sooner than later. And also, I guess, as a person, I'm like, I don't like to have even a small risk of missing out on something. It always makes me nervous of missing the 15th deadline, because there's no ambiguity in the law with that. That's always been a target date. So whatever we can do to endeavor to still meet that.
there's no ambiguity in the other chapter either.
We could talk about it after the meeting.
Right, so, but from that standpoint, then, so we just we've had our public hearings typically in late August. And then we have another 2.5 weeks or so prior to that other, but the board would still discuss the budget and the levy up until the time that we submit the certification. So the public hearing can have virtually any number in it. You know, it
Okay,
doesn't-
but that,
Something
it's,
that's higher.
it's a budget number. That's all you put in there.
Mhm.
It's just a
That's right.
number.
No, you know,
It's
for
a levy.
the hearing, for the notification in the paper. No, it doesn't, we can go up or down from that notification and whatever we do in the hearing.
I guess my point is there's no comparison from previous years. It's just a number being published saying,
Correct.
we're talking about $5 million budget this year. Here's when our public hearing is. It doesn't say,
Correct.
last year was 4 million, we're going to 5 million, that's an X percent. None of that comes out, right?
That's
Right, and that's been the challenge
That's right.
for the district, is the fact that we have these projects, including now the $2.4 million. So 1 year you have this big spike in revenue and expenditure, and then you're back down. And same with like meeting that requirement for, having the reserves. It's not just the overhead, the district, at any one time, we may have a large expenditure within that 6-month period that we're needing to cover. And depending on the grant, we may be in a cycle where you get 50% upfront, but then if you have expended 90% of it, then you have to make a request. If it's such that it's overlapping that 6-month period, you may not get the revenue until after that, so it then requires the district to carry that project expense upfront out of reserves until it's reimbursed back by the state. And those are pieces that are things that are often out of our control, depending on the timing of the project.
But when we get to the point where we're presenting the information like every city does, they have a general fund levy and they have a projects and program fund. That's what we want to get to, because then we will have a general fund levy that moves by inflationary numbers from year to year. Unless something extraordinary happens, where we do something to the building or whatever, but that's a certainty on that levy side, that general levy side is gonna be there. The volatile side is the projects and programs. So that's where we can separate it out, and that we can say that will be funded by grants. Even though our budget together might be 5 million, they only have to levy for that general fund. So that's an important point too.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
For your time and comments, so.
Yeah. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Definitely, I guess I would be interested, not at this moment, but at some time, to get feedback on. Just. Given our current, where we're at with some of our programs. Would you be okay with cutting back on some of those? The monitoring, I think, is probably maybe less known, but the AIS piece is very known, right? So, and then
Don't cut back on that.
just from that standpoint, I think it's a conversation that we can have with the public as well. But I'd be interested in feedback along the way.
Yeah.
If I could just add though, as we clean up these lakes from AIS, the dollar value every year keeps going down. You know, that whole program.
For AIS?
No, it doesn't.
I don't
Well,
think
not
so.
for your lake,
Not Forest Lake.
not for your
Not
lake,
Forest Lake.
but
No.
Comfort and
Just
Bone have
spray
barely,
No, but they're.
You're up
It's
with
like-
Forest Lake.
our little babies, aren't we?
We are.
But I'm saying, you know, we gotta figure out what.
And Forest Lake is 75% of your AIS budget. So whatever.
Yeah.
80% probably.
I think,
It's at least 75%.
I think what we
So the
should
tax piece too.
talk about smaller sub-districts,
And
we
why?
can do that.
Well, nobody likes
Yeah.
that.
No, Mike, valid point. I think we
Not
have
yet.
to put it all into
We're still
context with
talking.
a tri-party agreement too.
I did ask Sandiger to
Our time is
make a
8
request for
o'clock,
everybody.
so I don't think we have anything else to talk about, do we? We've got the leader submission covered. And we've talked about setting up meetings with the public. That can't happen until we have a real budget. So, or just determined budget. So I think that's it. Mike, anything more that you wanna cover? Steve?
No.
How about you, Manager Taves? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
Doug, any questions or comments about the budget? You're very quiet today.
Well, I'm kind of the top end of the tax bracket here, so everything hurts. At the same time, I understand the value of what we're doing. And whenever I get into conversations that work with people who like to spit out that anytime we're spending tax money, we're wasting their money, I just ask them, do you appreciate clean water? Do you like clean drinking water? What's the value of our lakes to you? And boy, that changed the conversation on its head. There are always people who want to stay in the ignorant zone and argue about anything that comes up that includes their tax money. But if they're uninformed and they're not willing to be informed, I simply say, you know, you're not willing to be in the argument here, so, you know, step aside. That's just the way I come at it.
good.
I know this is going to hurt, but I think we have two processes here that give us some pretty good options on how to get out of this hole. And it's not a hole because we were just wasteful. It's a hole that was in the process. I mean, we bought the car, the new car smell is starting to wear off. We can't regret buying a new car at this point. We got to maintain it. So that's how I'm looking at it.
Nicely put, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Very helpful, thank you. Okay, well, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
And Chase,
I'll
in a
second.
second, thank you. Roll call?
Manager Taves,
All right.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. We are adjourned, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.